Oh, here we are. How do you like that?
Awesome. That looks great. I love that.
Okay, well, good evening and welcome to About the Valley. My guest tonight is Ashling Trainor, and Ashling is a
I'm the owner of Infinity Events, and
yeah,
we are a full service event planning company based here in the Worcester area.
plan your party.
Yes.
And let me tell you, anybody who's planned a large party, a wedding especially,
Yes.
you know it is a lot of work.
It is. It's a lot of work, and people tend to take it on, not kind of knowing how much work is entailed. And they're in their brains, they're thinking, I need a venue and I need a florist and, I need my guest list. But then when you really get into the nitty gritty, and it could be wedding or corporate, you realize there's so many little things that go into it, and it takes so much more time than you ever really thought it took.
Yeah, and number one, who do you call? Especially today because a lot of caterers aren't working.
Correct.
So if you're having a catered, you have a situation there. A lot of the function places aren't open.
Correct.
Or you're limited. What's the limitation? How many people can I have? And you have to find all that stuff out. You know all that.
I do, yeah. So it's really important for us to know the rules, the regulations. It's even come to the point where they've changed so quickly sometimes that it's taken me a day or two to figure out where they're
Yeah.
at. So knowing those numbers and knowing the rules and whether your count includes your caterers, includes your event staff, you need to know all of that. And like you said before, finding venues that are open are very challenging. I have quite a few that just haven't opened yet, and they will be soon. But it's trying to find the right place can be a little bit challenging.
Yeah, and then you got to find a place that has help because a lot of help don't want to come back. I've heard that happen now. So,
It is, yeah, because they're on unemployment.
Yeah.
So sometimes some of these staff, obviously the event world just imploded when COVID happened over a year ago, and a lot of staff unfortunately got laid off. Some staff got kept on, but some are just working a part-time basis. So even when I get a client now and I know a lot of vendors here in the area, I'll always say to my clients, it will take a little bit longer for me to get your quotes and your answers just because a lot of staff are working part-time.
Yeah.
And working from home, so their resources have really been cut down.
Yeah, so for the amateur, it makes it real tough.
It does.
It's well worth, you're spending thousands of dollars, especially on a wedding.
Yes.
We can talk, God, we can talk tuition for 1 year.
Yes.
And so you need a planner. And then you also, you charge, but when you come down to it, you probably save what it costs for you just in the fact that you get someone who knows where to go and what to do and what to spend on.
That's exactly it. So the biggest reason why people should hire and do hire planners like myself is money. A lot of times there's this thought that hiring a planner is expensive. And I mean, we're not free, right? It's our career,
involved,
right?
yeah.
But at the same time, we have connections that allow us to usually get discounts on things. So if I call a caterer, I might get a little bit of a cheaper price than if Joe Smith called the caterer, and I pass those costs, those savings on to my clients. And then the other side of that is time.
Yeah.
So money is time, like they say, time is money. So at the same time, when you hire a planner, we can do something in 45 minutes that may take you 5 days. We know the ins and outs of it. We know exactly who to call. You tell us what you're looking for. And as you're speaking, my brain's already moving around with who I should be calling and what I think would be the best fit for that specific client.
And also, you know who gets the best pricing.
Yes.
So right there, you call the wrong person, you may be shocked when you find out what it's going to cost you.
It's true, yeah. So, doing events, prices can range so much. The range is huge. And when I work very closely with my clients on their budgets, and the money is definitely a factor. Some clients aren't as concerned with the budget, and some are. And knowing where they lie, kind of in that range, is when I know which vendors to contact. Some vendors work out of their homes. Some they have no overhead. Other vendors have space and they have a little bit higher overhead. So just knowing those ins and outs already in my head and behind
Yeah.
the scenes, it can save quite
Yeah,
a bit of money.
I can save some money calling this vendor because they got a little less overhead than that vendor.
Exactly.
And
Yep. And some of my clients would just call to get recommendations. And I'm more than happy. I'm always happy to do that. If someone calls and they said, I just need a florist in the area to do XYZ, I'm more than happy to do that as well. So we do a lot of recommendations as well.
Oh, and it's interesting, on your website, you talk about why you got into event planning. That's pretty interesting. You were quite young when you
Yes.
decided you
I
wanted.
was. So most people, when they're younger, they want to be, my daughter included, they change their mind all the time. They want to be a police officer, or I think my son right now wants to be the greatest showman and a circus conductor for the rest of his life. But for me, when I was about 7 or 8 years old, I watched the movie Father of the Bride. And for all
great
of you,
movie.
yes, and
Bente Tracy.
it's an amazing movie. And when I was watching that movie, I saw Franck, who, if any of you seen that movie, you know who I'm talking about. And he's this over-the-top wedding planner, and something clicked in my brain, and I just loved the way he worked and how over the top it was and everything that was involved with this planning of this wedding. And that was it. I was sold. I was going to become a wedding planner or plan events. I mean, that side of me was, I'm a wedding planner and this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And then it sort of morphed into my parents having dinner parties at the house, and I'd be the one putting together the charcuterie board. Probably wasn't gorgeous when I was 9, but, crackers and pepperoni situation. But I would serve their meals. Some of their friends would even give me tips, and I thought it was the best thing in the
Wow,
world.
that's even better.
It was amazing. And so it just kind of solidified I want to be in the hospitality service industry, no matter what I do. And then when I was looking at colleges, it was really focused on hospitality management and event planning. And I went to Endicott College in Beverly, Mass., which
Yeah.
best choice for me by far. The classes were small and great professors. And it just, again, solidified that I picked the right thing. This is so for me, and I love this. And then after college, I just continued on, and every job I worked was, funny enough, in the back of my mind, to be able to open up my own company. So I always knew this is what I wanted to do.
It was always the goal to
It was
have your own
always the
company.
goal, always. So I just was very strategic about what jobs I took, and I worked front house, back house, caterers, setups. I mean, I've worked probably every aspect of events that you can work for the sake that I wanted, when I opened up my own company, I wanted to know what all of those vendors were going through when I called them 1 week ahead of an event and said, can you do XYZ? I wanted to know how much work it took in the background. So I did it, and then I finally went out on my own.
That makes a big difference. Knowing what it's like on the other side,
Yes.
it helps you to work your plan.
It does, yeah. So I've been in the industry over 18 years.
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
probably even longer than that if you kind of add college into that.
Right.
I've always interned with event planners. I actually interned in college with a very sought-after event planner in Dublin, Ireland, where my parents currently live and lived at the time. And the amount of experience that I learned from that is just amazing. And it's just such a great thing to be able to know that you're in the right industry and you're
Yeah.
doing what you love.
Now, of course, with events, we were just talking weddings, but you get into many other events.
I do.
It's even corporate.
I do. So actually, most of my client base is corporate
Yep.
or fundraising and nonprofit. That's actually the majority of my business. I do a few weddings. I've done a lot of weddings in my past life, so it's nothing new for me. But most of my clients are based here in Worcester, and they're either corporate companies that are looking to do meetings or a launch of some sort, a product or something.
Yeah.
We also have, what we're finding is happening more now that we're sort of not coming out of COVID, but a little bit more coming out than we were a year ago, is a lot of team building events. So everyone's been at home, they've been on Zooms, they see each other, but they haven't actually seen each other, and they haven't
Right.
gotten together. They're not in the office every day to be able to talk around the water cooler. So a lot of people and companies are having these team building events in smaller groups and COVID friendly, but just to get their staff back, the morale back, and everyone back kind of together again.
Yeah, I mean, well, you really couldn't have anything for about a year.
Correct. Yeah, everything shut down. So I actually started my company March 4th. I officially opened my
Oh,
doors.
God, just when it was starting.
Yeah, and 1 week and 2 days later, I think it was 10 days later, both of my young children were home with me full time, and the entire events industry shut down. So to say it was a crazy year is a understatement. But at the same time, events still happened. We just had to kind of pivot and morph
Yep.
them into something else. So I was lucky enough that, yes, I was brand new in business, but I had had enough experience and enough contacts in the city that we just kind of changed all those events into virtual. And now things are starting to come out of virtual and sort of more of what we call a hybrid. And they're doing virtual and in person, or just in person.
Well, now in person, you have to take other things into consideration.
You do.
You have to wear masks all the time?
You do.
How do you do the seating arrangements
You
and things
do.
like that? That hopefully will eventually disappear.
It will disappear eventually. It will, from a professional standpoint, I think it's going to be a while until we see kind of tables of 10 and no masks anymore. But there are a lot of rules. You can only usually have 6 per, round table. You do have to keep your mask on unless you're at your table and you're eating. The way that you seat your guests is very specific. It's supposed to be by family. So the rules are still quite strict. And it sometimes does depend on how strict they are with your venue as well.
But there's a
So,
good reason to hire a
Correct.
planner right now is the fact that you need to have those little idiosyncrasies that you need to
Yes.
do, with the seating, especially with the seating.
yes.
With the speaking. With corporate events, that's a big factor because, of course, you have speeches, you have presentations, and how you do that, now you gotta be very careful about how you do it. Some would be video, some might be live.
Correct. And hiring, I always say to everyone I talk to and everywhere, is hiring the best vendors is your best decision that you can make.
Yes.
Whether it's myself, if it's someone else, if it's an audiovisual company to pull off, you're trying to do something and stream it all over the world. Having,
Well, you can work with audiovisual
100%.
companies, right? I mean,
Oh, yeah, I work
in
with
your
some
planning, you
great
have
ones.
sources.
I do. I have some amazing audiovisual companies. And that's a huge thing right now because usually people are doing, even if they are doing an in-person event, you usually do have some kind of virtual piece to it, whether you're streaming live your event for
Right.
people who couldn't attend, or you're putting clips up of the video from the night of the event and showing it to other people, just to broaden your reach. So yeah, it's important.
Now, when you did corporate events prior to COVID, if you had a situation with a national company and flying people in, you handle that as well?
We do, yes.
Because I worked for a major corporation for 30 years, and we would have annual sales meetings. And the whole sales force, the whole country.
Yes.
And I used to think, wow, whoever puts that together?
Us.
Yeah. And
So
you
I
gotta
didn't
talk
do it with Infinity
Booking
Events.
flights and transportation when you get there. And
Yes. And all your dinners and
yeah, then
all your meeting
all the
spaces.
dinners and the speakers and the times.
It's a big undertaking.
Yeah.
So I haven't done it yet with my company just because of when I opened and when COVID happened.
Yeah.
Those have not come back and
Was
they
your
probably won't
experience
be.
with it from
But I have
prior
done it
j- prior
exactly
jobs?
100%. They are a much bigger animal, but at the same time, once you know that industry and know how to do it, it's not that difficult. It's just that puzzle piece. It's just every event is kind of like a puzzle, and you're sort of just putting these puzzle pieces in. But the great thing is nothing's cookie cutter. Every single puzzle's different. So this event has a picture of a puppy on it, and this one's a cat, but all the pieces are different shapes. So as an event planner, you're kind of moving these shapes around. So at
Yep.
the end of the event, you have created this beautiful picture to show your client, and they're extremely happy. And whereas you're planning another event at the same time, but the pieces are all different. So it's just kind of always moving around those puzzle pieces to make sure that everything comes out perfectly and it all comes together in the end.
Hey, we're 508-266-0990 if you'd like to speak to Ashling. And she's right from Sutton, right nearby.
am.
And if you got something coming up, you can do a different level. You don't have to do the whole event. You can do
Nope.
portions of it.
Correct. Yeah, so we do everything from full event planning services, which is usually someone would call and say, I am having a corporate event or a fundraiser and I have no clue what I'm doing and help. And I'd kind of lead them in the right directions and I give them choices and they can pick. So as opposed to having 25 different venues to pick from, I kind of narrow it down based
Yep.
on their needs and give them 3. and say, these are my suggestions on what I think. And then we also, on the other side of things, we do consultations. So if someone's just needing, I can't find a photographer and I'm really looking for this, whatever
Yep.
that might be, we probably know that photographer and you just haven't found them yet, for whatever reason. So we can either put you together with them, or we have clients where we just do help them with the catering and we're their day of services for just day of. They maybe have planned the entire event themselves, but they don't want to be the person with the headset on the day. They want to sit down and relax and enjoy their
Right.
evening. So that would be
They-
us. So we would do on-site a day of coordination. So we do everything in between.
Yeah, because it can be a lot of coordinating involved,
Can,
especially
yes.
with a wedding, because you're going from the service at the church, synagogue, whatever, and then you got to go to the reception hall, and you got process to go through there,
Yes.
and there's so many things to think about.
There are. When you're in this industry long enough, it's funny you don't even think about them. They just kind of come second
Right.
nature, which is what I
But
love
even,
about events.
picking out the entertainment, the music,
Mm-hmm.
there's so many varieties of music today.
Correct.
And what are they looking for? I mean,
Correct.
so, and then you got to find the person that will handle that.
100%. I mean, I just had a client recently who wanted a very specific style band, and I
Yep.
hadn't worked with that style band before, so I actually didn't have any in my roster, which for me was very rare. I usually have a lot of contacts or a contact through a contact, so it was sort of me going back to the drawing board, and it was funny, and it kind of brought me back to, wow, this would take this person this long to do. I mean, it took me, a couple hours. It may have taken them 55 hours to do all of what I just tried to figure out. Because at least we have connections. There's always a connection through a
Right.
connection. But yeah, it's interesting. There's just a lot of different facets.
Yeah, you know
All
other
the
people in
different
the
vendors.
business,
I do.
so you can fall back on them. Do you know anybody that can
We
do this
do.
style of music? And-
That's the great thing with the events industry. No matter what style vendor you are, it's a very tight-knit community.
Yes.
So, I have a very close friend of mine who is also an event planner here in Worcester, and some people think about it as your competitors, and I'm like, absolutely not. We completely collaborate together all the time. And if I have a client who's looking for something and I don't know, she's the first I call. And she may have a recommendation, and we do, that happens with all vendors.
Yep.
So, even if I can't hire caterer A, they'll recommend me to caterer B, and I'll be like, perfect, okay, great, and it just saved me a ton of time. So it is a very small knit community, and we all kind of help each other
And
out.
whereas you do this all the time, you have better connection with a lot of the facilities.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes it's hard to get into some of these places.
It is, yeah. So it's not always easy. There's not always a lot of free dates available, especially
Right.
now that the world's opening
Yes.
back up. Things book very quickly. The number one thing that I do with my company with clients is before I present an option to a client, I have to know that it's available. Not every venue will put spaces on hold, just because things book so quickly and things move so quickly.
Yeah.
Whereas I have some really great connections here with some venues.
So you get a
that they'll
better
put the
chance that
date-
they'll hold for you.
Yeah, they'll hold it for me because they know that I'll give them a quick answer.
Yeah.
Whereas if you just have a couple, let's say for a wedding, call and say, can you hold the date? They may have done that to 15 different venues. Whereas if I have that connection, they know that I'm not going to, make them hold it for a month at a time.
Yeah, I mean, if the average person calls, they might call 15 places. Do they call any of them back?
Correct, and that's part of the problem sometimes is, you hold for a certain number of hours or days, and then you have to release it, because you do have other people that
Yeah,
call
because,
in.
and like you say, especially now where there's not a lot of places available.
Correct. Yeah, things book up very quickly nowadays.
Yeah,
So
I
you have to
can
kind of do it pretty fast, get on your toes.
Now, I know there were weddings went on over the past year. How did they handle that? They couldn't have done it virtual, on virtual weddings, did they?
So some did.
Really?
Some
That's
did.
kind of interesting. I know.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of both. So some couples, what they did, instead of doing a wedding for 150 people and all their
Yep.
family and friends from both sides, bringing everyone together, some couples postponed and moved it multiple times, depending
yeah,
on,
because
you might have moved it and then
things
you might
kept
have had to move
changing.
it again. So some weddings now are in 2022 or even 2023. for those larger ones. Some couples, what they did is they decided just to do a smaller intimate wedding. So sometimes some of the couples would just do, if the rules were 10 people, they would do a backyard wedding in their backyard, would hire a tent and a caterer and have 10 people. It was usually the parents and their best friends and their officiant, and get married in their backyard. And then a year from now, maybe they'll do a bigger wedding. Or not,
Did they broadcast
and
live
some
on
of
the
them
net?
would, yeah. So some of them, there's a lot of the wedding websites kind of added on very quickly. They were fantastic to kind of catch up with that very quickly, and added links. So if they had a wedding website, let's say the Knot or Zola, you have your wedding website with all your details for your guests. There was actually a link on there, and you could really just put just an iPhone up and record it. And it's almost kind of like doing it onto a YouTube, but it goes to this specific website that you log on and you can watch the
Well,
ceremony.
see, that's where you would come in, because I wouldn't even know anything about that. I wouldn't know what to do.
It's not something that a lot of people think of.
No.
Well,
Well, this is something altogether new.
It's brand new, and that's the great thing about being in this industry, is in every industry really, is things are always changing and morphing, whereas things changed so quickly last year that it was like hard to almost keep up with all the different technologies and what you could do, but we tried to keep up
That's
with all of
something
it.
interesting too. Even once the COVID thing is gone,
Mm-hmm.
if you've got a grandparent, great-grandparent that's, bedridden,
Mm-hmm.
they could watch it. You could set
They
up
can.
a computer laptop and,
Mm-hmm.
hey, they could watch everything and see all, maybe they would be dying to be there, but at least they're there in spirit.
Exactly, and they're not missing that really special
Right.
moment in
Yeah.
their lives. Yeah.
Yeah, or if they're in the hospital or laid up, or even someone who's far away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they can't fly in like
Yeah.
a lot of European countries, and I won't say which ones they are because I could be wrong, but some of them you can't fly into right now or fly
Right.
out of without very specific reason. So that could be the case that my parents right now are in Ireland,
Yeah.
so they wouldn't be able to fly over here and then fly home without having to quarantine and do all of this.
Did
So
they
they'd
go
be
there for
someone-
retirement?
No, they actually moved there when I was a junior in high school when I was 17.
Oh, wow.
They did, yes. Halfway through my junior year, my dad was offered a job over there, and we up and moved. There's 4 kids in my family, and we all up and moved over to Ireland.
You must have been disappointed with having to leave halfway through your junior
I
year.
actually, it was like a really exciting moment. Like I think it was stressful at the time, but
Yeah, well,
I think it
you're
was
leaving
just.
a lot. You have a lot of close friends
I
in high school.
did. Well, the great thing is my parents are probably the best people on the face of the planet, but they and hopefully they watch this, but they
They can watch this.
I know, they'll have to log on and see. So they gave me the option of moving back. So I really
Oh.
wanted to finish. I went to a private Catholic school in Dartmouth, and they gave me the option of coming back. I actually moved in with one of my best friends at the time and her family.
Oh, that was
and I was
good.
able to move back my senior year, finish my high school with my friends.
Yeah, well,
and-
you like to graduate with the people you
did.
started with.
Yep, and then I went to college here in Boston. So technically, when I went to college, I was an international student because my parents lived in
Yeah.
Ireland, and I was an Irish citizen, and so were my mom. So technically, I was an international student. I was from Ireland, but yeah. So I just traveled back and forth. So I moved away from home, I guess you'd say, when I was 17, and not for a bad reason, just
Right.
to kind of finish school here,
Yeah.
and then I traveled back and forth every Christmas, every summer. I'd go back, I'd work, I'd come back to school, and then I moved there a few years after I graduated college.
Beautiful country.
It's a beautiful country. Yeah, I lived there full time for 4.5 years, and I worked in multiple hotels and 5-star properties.
Great weather.
Yeah, beautiful. Rains all the time.
I know. Well, rain, but doesn't snow.
It doesn't really snow, but when it does snow, I lived there. I worked in a hotel in city center, and it snowed, and I was stuck in the hotel for 3 days.
Ooh.
Yeah, you couldn't get home.
'Cause they're not-
The whole
they're not
country shut
prepared
down.
for it.
No, they don't know what to do if it snows over there.
But it's interesting. Now, is this in Ireland itself, not northern, not...
This is right in Dublin,
Not
so it's the
Ulster.
Republic of
Oh,
Ireland.
right in Dublin.
Yes. So I actually have an 11-year-old daughter, and she was born in Ireland.
Oh.
I had her while I was over there. So yeah, so we're all Irish citizens. Yeah.
Ah.
So I've worked internationally,
Yeah.
which is another really great
That's a great
thing with
experience,
us.
though.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a number of people who like to get married in Ireland.
There are. It's actually a big destination to
Yes.
get married in. So when I lived there, when I was in college, I started an internship I mentioned before with a very sought after event planner over there. And she actually would bring me back on. You know, we worked so well together. And I worked for her for quite a number of years, on and off throughout college. And I planned some very famous weddings, some for some very famous people. We did one, we flew everyone to France for a wedding. We did
You don't want to
another
say
one.
who they were.
Yeah, no, unfortunately for confidentiality, I can't.
Right, yeah, you
but
can't.
I can't. No, you have to sign confidentiality agreements. But one in a very famous castle in Dublin. So we
Oh.
did some really, really great.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
they
weddings.
love to get married in the castle.
They do. I mean, you can't ask for a better backdrop. You
Right.
can't. Yeah.
And it's a real castle, not some prop.
It's a real castle. It's a real. People can actually buy real castles and live in them. I think my dad has a friend that does.
Oh, what an experience that
Yeah,
is.
yeah, it was great. It was just amazing being able to have that international experience.
Yes.
And it's funny now that I'm older, you kind of forget about it until someone asks, and you're like, oh yeah, I did live there for quite a number of years.
But what a great experience, and do that before you start your own.
Correct.
And now you've handled it at all ends.
I have, yeah. So I can really sit here and say, very confidently, I've worked in every aspect of the events world, some way, shape, or form, whether it be in Ireland, whether it be here in the States, whether it be in hotels or with event planners or restaurants, or I've done it all. So it's been a great run and still going.
I think another place a lot of people are getting married now is on the Caribbean islands.
They are. That's a very popular destination. It has been for quite a while. A lot of people, if they want to go, they either they bring their friends and family, or
Yes.
their friends and family will fly down. Usually a smaller wedding. It's usually not quite as large. And then sometimes they do a party when they get back here with all the people that can't go, whether
But
it be
that
a
now
hotel.
involves booking hotel rooms,
does.
obviously, because everybody's going to be overnight.
It does. Yep. So it's really it creates more of a vacation vibe for everybody.
But that's where a planner really comes in, because
Does.
you know, if you got 50 people, even not a big wedding, but 50 people, you're talking at least 25 rooms.
Mm-hmm.
That, you can't just, every person can't call a hotel and get 25 rooms.
No, and I mean they could, but they won't get the rates they probably want. They
Right.
may not get the contract. Whereas for us, I look over every single contract for
Yes.
every vendor that we have. No contract goes straight to a client of mine. So things like that are really important.
And
to
when
know.
they get there will be a room. It's not, if you try to
Mm-hmm.
do it yourself, sometimes when the guests get there, oh, wow, we made a mistake, or.
Yeah, we didn't book it correctly,
Yeah,
or you
yeah.
actually booked the sister property
What do
instead
you
of
do
ours.
now? You're here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of things that can go wrong. So having a planner, and also I always suggest having a local planner who is in that area.
Yes.
So if you're going to, let's say, St. Martin, have a planner who's actually based on St. Martin, and they know
But that's
all
where
the
you can come in,
connections.
you can line that person up and you work
Exactly.
together.
Yep, exactly.
Now, another destination is Disney World.
Yes. That's a popular one.
Yeah.
I have not personally done any events down in Disney World, I must say, but I do have quite a few colleagues that have. So I think for Disney World, I'd probably leave that to more of the experts. They know Disney World a lot better than I do.
Oh, okay.
So
you have people that specialize on Disney
they
World.
do, yeah, 100%.
Wow.
There's travel agents that specialize in Disney, and then there's also planners that specialize in Disney as well as other things. Probably
Yep.
wouldn't just be Disney. But again, that's one thing with me is if I don't feel like I can give you exactly the perfect service, I will get you in touch with someone that can.
Oh,
So if
okay.
I would sit here and say, sure, I can plan your event in Disney, but if I don't know exactly where to go or who to call,
Yeah.
I'm going to find out the person who we should be using. Because at the end of the day, it's their happiness, whether it's a couple or if it's company or if it's a
Wait,
fundraising
that's the
event.
one day you don't want anything to go wrong.
You don't want anything to go wrong, and you need an expert. You have to have an expert. So we
Yeah.
always find the best experts in the business.
I mean, I know Disney does a lot of stuff. I had a corporate meeting there,
Yeah.
Amazing.
It's very popular, that in Vegas.
Yes, Vegas, extremely popular.
Yes.
Yeah, that's another wedding destination too, isn't it?
It is. It's actually much more popular for corporate Vegas.
Yes, yeah.
Just because
corporate
of all of their convention centers that are down there. They have a lot of space, a lot of ballrooms, a lot of convention space.
Yeah, they've actually merged into doing that.
Hmm.
They started out as a gambling destination, but now they've really merged into drawing people in
They have.
for conventions. And I think a lot of companies are doing that now.
They have. And the big thing with companies, whether you come to Worcester, you go to Vegas, you go to Disney, a big draw with companies in getting their whether it's clients and or employees to go is having that fun factor. So you're going to
Yes.
be in a full day, 8 to 5 meeting,
But then they can do entertainment at night.
and then they do entertainment at night. So a lot of times where the planner comes in is, yes, we do all of the meetings. We make sure you have your breakfast, your lunch, and all of that, your
Right.
AV, everything you need. But we also would plan all of the extra activities. So whether we set up a tour of the local zoo, or we do a wine tasting for, maybe some of the women who want to go to a wine tasting, and then the guys want to go to a brewery, and we can
Yep.
kind of set up all these really great activities. So then they really make it into a destination as opposed to, and doesn't even have to be destination. It can all be local. It gets done a lot with local as well. But then you bring that social atmosphere into that event, which, if it's a meeting, is a really great thing to sort of boost morale, get people talking, get people out of the suits and the daily grind of things,
Yeah.
and they're loosening up and they're finding out about each other's families, and it's just a great bonding experience.
Another thing you can look at, if someone picks a place for their wedding, is it the right spot? Do they have a big enough airport?
Mm-hmm.
Do they have enough hotel rooms?
Right.
So you might suggest, well, maybe you don't want to go there because it's not going to accommodate what you want to do.
Correct.
And you wouldn't know that as an amateur,
No, Boston's a great example for that. So if people are coming to Boston, let's say for a wedding or a conference, and they want to go to XYZ hotel, that hotel may be labeled online as a Boston property. That hotel may be located in Marlborough, Waltham.
Oh yeah, they can.
Worcester.
Yeah, I know they.
So if you ever Google, I want to stay in a hotel room in Boston for the night, you may get the Sheraton Framingham, and that is technically still kind of the greater Boston area. But if you're planning an event and you don't have that local knowledge, you may then have everyone arrived into Logan Airport and think that you're in downtown Boston, but you're actually 35, 40 miles away from Boston.
Yeah, and with the traffic, that could be a problem.
Correct. So it's knowing the local area, and whether you're in Boston or you're out here kind of in central or western Mass.
You're right about that. When I was in a corporate world, we knew that they considered certain radius actually Boston, even though you weren't in Boston.
Correct. And that's everywhere. That's not
Yeah.
I was just using Boston for an example, but that's everywhere. Dublin was the same. You could be 40 miles away from Dublin and you're still
Yep.
kind of, it's
And
labeled
certain
as a
times of
Dublin
year,
hotel.
there can be a shortage on hotel rooms.
There can, yeah, especially if there's COVID's a little different now, but things like festival dates. So if
Yep.
someone's looking to plan something and I get a call and I know that the city of Worcester has this event going on for the public, I know that they're going to have a really hard time getting hotel rooms in the locations they want or function space in the locations they want before we even get into the details, before we even get into proposals sometimes.
Right.
So then I can really talk to them even on our initial consultation call, saying, is your date flexible? Is your location flexible? This is happening in the area. And then they haven't spent all this time planning to realize 4 months down the road that there's 1,000 people in the city and there's no hotel rooms available.
Yeah.
So it's things like that that we try to stay on top of.
Yeah, you'll find out there's conventions coming or things like that because yeah, it can really make a problem. Then when the day oh my God, what am I going to do? I got all these guests and I got no place to put them.
Correct. And it could be something as small or big as a show at an arena. You
Yeah.
know, they have a
Who's coming in?
yeah, I mean, take the Woo Sox, for example. It's
Yeah.
amazing. They've built this beautiful stadium. Knowing those dates, they're in my calendar. Once I have those dates, they all come out. Those are all going to go into my calendar. So I know, you know, this Saturday in September, they have a home game playing this team, and it's good. The city's going to be packed. So if I have someone that calls and wants to do an event on the street next door, I know to be prepared.
But there's another thing though, you can, if a company is planning a sales meeting or something, a trip to the Woo Sox game might be part of it.
100%.
Yeah, and
Yep.
so, you know, okay, well, this is the team coming in, and that's a big one.
Totally.
I'll get to it right away, and we'll get you the tickets.
Yep, 100%. And it's really those local experiences. And whether you're coming from afar or you're local, those local experiences really bring your event to the next level. It just elevates your event.
Right.
And it creates this, you go home and you're like, I didn't sit in a meeting room for 5 hours, 8, 10 hours a day for 4 days. I got to then go to the Woo Sox. Then got to go to a brewery. I then got to do a tour around the city and look at all the murals on the buildings. There's just all these really great things that you can do, especially just here in the Worcester area.
Well, that's another thing too. If you live in the area, you take a lot of things for granted.
do.
Don't realize what's there.
Correct.
And if you don't live in the area, you have no idea what's
Correct.
there. So
It's kind of a catch-22, really.
yeah. So you
Um,
really need a planner that knows the areas and knows or you can call someone to find out what's the best thing to do and what are the best activities and what's really
Yep.
going to. So then you work with the client to find out what are my people going to like.
Exactly. It's kind of a concierge service. And I've worked with other planners who have had that service, and that's something, we don't really advertise, but we do all the
Yep.
time. You kind of do it daily and you don't even really realize you're doing it. But someone's needing tickets to the Woo Sox game for their VIPs that are coming in, and you're planning their event for them. You're going to kind of go that extra mile and help them out. So
Are you
we try to
finding
do as much as we can.
some people are doing that with weddings now as well? They're making it like a 2 or 3 day event.
They are, yes. It's becoming like a long weekend.
Yeah.
You
the
do
guests
welcome
come in
dinners.
on
and
Friday night, and you have a dinner, and then
Yeah.
they have the wedding on Saturday.
You
and
usually do a breakfast the next morning.
breakfast the next morning
kind of
before they
their
go off
farewell.
on their honeymoon.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's becoming more of sort of this really great family affair where everyone's coming in.
Yes.
A lot of people don't live locally, for especially for social style events.
Right.
And not just weddings. It could be family reunions. It could
Yeah.
be, and we do all of those. We do a lot of social events, birthday parties, all of that. So you could have people coming in from further away, and they
Yeah, and
need
you
all
can't
those
just do that when
services.
they get there and say, okay, we're all going to go out to this restaurant.
No, it doesn't
They're not-
always work
They're not going
well.
to accommodate you like that.
If there's about 10 people, maybe that could be a little easier.
Yeah.
But yeah, usually
If
you
you're
need a
gonna
little bit of
decent big
planning.
crowd, you need to plan that ahead.
You
You need
do.
to have that booked
You do.
and be able to get in there and probably have the whole place.
You do, yeah, especially with your numbers. And, there's a lot of amazing restaurants here that do book out privately. We can book them out
Right.
privately. We can book their side rooms that they have out
Yeah.
privately. So there's just a lot of really great options. You don't have to go to a ballroom or a hotel if you didn't want to. You can do part of it in a hotel and then go out and have all these other things that you can do in the city.
Yeah, maybe get married in one of the parks or something like that.
Yeah.
And these things all have to be booked.
They do.
You can't
And a
just
lot of
wa-
rules and regulations.
Yeah, you
behind all
can't
of them
just
as well.
walk in the park
You
and
can't.
and get married.
No, I mean, you probably could if no one saw you. You'd be okay if it's just the
Yeah,
two of you.
yeah.
But you couldn't really walk in there with 100 people. There's permits and everything that are included
Right.
that you have to have.
So here again, that's where a planner comes in that
Mm-hmm.
can put all this together for you.
Correct.
And, and that is a very special day.
It is.
I mean, hopefully you're going to be together for a long time, so you want to have a special day.
And really, at the end of the day, sort of every event, including weddings, it does have something special to it. Whether it's
Yes.
a social event that's a bridal shower, or a birthday party, or a family reunion, or just a dinner. with 10 of your friends that you haven't seen in a long time
Right.
because you've been in COVID. That's a special event. And then if you go over to the corporate side, and I do a lot of work in the nonprofit world, you know, those are such great events because there's always such a great meaning behind it. So if you're in the corporate world, you're usually learning about a new product, or there's something with the company that they're trying to tell everyone about, or
Right.
and then if you're in the nonprofit world, it's usually you're raising money for this amazing cause. So there's always, I always call them feel goods. There's all these sort of feel goods with each event that you do, no matter what style event it is, which is one of the things I love about
Well,
it.
I was in the corporate world, and the idea was when you come up with a new product, you want to get everyone excited about it, 'cause especially the sales force.
Exactly.
Because if they're excited, then they're going to go out and they're going to promote the
Exactly.
product, and you're going to put that excitement out. So,
Yep.
how do you get them excited? What do you do? What do you show them? You know, I mean, things like that, and
Yep.
and that's where if a good planner can put that together for you.
Exactly. That's where you'd work with something like that's a perfect example. You work really close with your contact, whoever they may be in that company, whatever role they are.
Right.
And the biggest thing for us is we always look for what's their goal? What's their main goal? Is it to get their sales force excited? Is it to have them learn these 3 things about this specific product? But knowing that goal in the back of our mind will then help us sort of morph that event into be exactly what they need. So we need to focus more of our time on this part of the event, and then we'll have all these things as well. But it's really knowing what they want to get out of it to be able to sort of go back, you almost go backwards in planning that event.
What I found was good too was you talk to people from other parts of the country, and you find out what they have for problems and what you have for problems, how you do things, and so you actually learn things from one another.
100%. It
And-
is, we are constantly learning. The amount of phone calls when I first started that I made to every friend of mine in this business, they probably got sick of me. But there were just little things that I'd say, well, I have my contract, but like, what should I do about COVID wording now? You know, it's just, we are in this, just amazing niche that we constantly learn from each other. And it's, I never go into an event walking out an event that I plan or attend for that matter, and I have not learned something, whether it be from a vendor, from myself, from something that I did behind the scenes that no one knew went wrong, but maybe it did. They will never know. We hide that well. But you're always learning something, and that's one of the things I love about this industry is you're constantly learning, and things are constantly changing.
Oh, wow, yeah. But you know, the best part is you're doing what you really wanted to do.
I am. I
And
love it.
That's when you do a good job.
Mm-hmm.
If you love what you're doing, you're going to do a good job at it.
You don't work a day in your life. Isn't that what they say? If you love
Yeah.
what you do, you don't work a day in your life.
That's what I told both my sons. I don't care what you do for a living. I don't care if you're a janitor. If you love it, that's all that matters. Don't worry about how much money you make. Like the job, then you never work a day in your life.
Agreed. I mean, there are days where I'm like, oh gosh, what am I doing? This is crazy. But everyone's like that every now and then. But I just, when I talk to my clients, and I had a phone call earlier today with another one of my clients, and getting off the phone with her, I was like, I just love this.
Yeah.
Like, she is so happy. I have helped make her that happy
Yep.
with everything that I provided with her, the information I've given her. And it's that feel-good moment. And it's just, like, at the end of an event, every time at the end of an event, I, like, you know, the heels come off, and I may get a glass of wine, or I might go hide in the kitchen somewhere, you know, for 5 minutes. And it's just the best feeling when it's that last hour of an event and everyone is smiling, they're happy, and the client is over the moon with your services.
Well, there's no job in the world, no matter how much you like it, that's not going to have some stress.
Correct. Our industry is pretty stressful.
Right. But you still enjoy it, and, you know, you get over that part.
Correct. Yep, exactly. Yeah, doing events, and there's many times, I mean, if I'd be a millionaire if I got paid $1 for every time I've heard I can't believe you're an event planner for a living. Like, that's so stressful. Whereas, I mean, even vendors that I talk to, they look after one aspect, a big aspect, whether they're a caterer or a florist, and they're like, but you're doing the whole thing. You're getting all of us in one place. I'm just doing one part of it. You're making sure it's all coming together.
Yeah,
And again,
You're
just-
coordinating something that you really have no control over the others.
Correct.
You just hope and pray and cross your fingers that they're gonna show up on time.
You do, and that's where relationships are everything in this business. I mean, the vendors that I work with, I trust implicitly. I mean, they're just the best in the business. And I can say that with a lot of certainty I've worked with amazing vendors all over the world, but these ones in Worcester are second to none. They're just fantastic. And I never have to worry about someone not showing, ever.
Yeah, I don't think people realize how many events go on in Worcester County.
So many. I wish I knew that number because there is so many. I mean, pre-COVID, there would be, even if you just were on Facebook and it was, what are the events tonight? You'd have 20
Yeah.
in one night, and some of them are virtual. They're not even in person. So between, even when you just do the chamber events and the business networking
Yes.
and all of those, there's a lot going on, especially in the business world. And then you bring social into that, which is usually more on the weekend, but weekday, it's hopping.
Yeah, so you're in the right area.
I am, yes.
What brought you into Sutton?
So actually, after I graduated college, I moved to Ireland, and then when I moved back from Ireland, I moved back to Marlborough. I worked
Yeah.
at a hotel out there right when I graduated college, so
A lot
I
of stuff
went
goes
back
there. They got
there.
a nice convention center out there.
They do, yep. So I worked there. I worked at that convention center, and I came back and I worked with them for a little while, and then I actually met my fiance at the time, and then we moved, or boyfriend at the time. He lived kind of out in this way, and he was
Oh.
telling me about Sutton and the area, so I moved. I bought a house in Sutton, and
Oh.
loved it. I heard the school systems were great. I had a daughter
Yep.
who was 2 at the time when I moved back to Marlborough. So it kind of just sort of morphed. I'm from Cape Cod originally, so I'm so not from this area.
Oh.
I'm like an implant.
What part of the Cape?
I'm from Barnstable.
Oh, okay.
Yes, so I'm a through and through Cape Cod girl.
The biggest town on the Cape.
It is, I think, yeah. It's a huge town. I grew up there my whole life
Oh,
until
it
I
goes
was
from
17.
north to
Literally
the south.
takes
at
over the
both ends
whole
of-
middle
yeah.
of it. Yep.
Yeah, we're on the bay as well as on the Atlantic.
We are, yeah.
And the most famous town, well, actually it's a village on the Cape is Hyannis. And Hyannis Port, and that's part of Barnstable.
It is.
A lot
I'm
of people
only
don't
about
realize that.
15 minutes away from Hyannis,
Yeah,
where I
a lot of
grew
people
up.
don't realize it's not separate, it's
It
part of
isn't.
Barnstable.
Yep, exactly. It's like a county within Barnstable.
Yeah, like we have villages out here.
Yep.
Same concept.
Yep. I'm from Marston's Mills is the area that I'm from in Barnstable.
Beautiful, you're right in the center there.
I am, yeah. So I'm kind of right near Sandwich and Mash Bay. So
Yeah.
it's a beautiful, beautiful area. So Sutton to me was a little different when I first came. I'm like, I have to drive how far to a beach? I could have gone 10 minutes each way and been at 15
I know,
beaches.
yeah.
So
You
it was a
almost-
little different when I first moved here, but
You could almost walk to the beach.
exactly. But the people are lovely. I mean,
Yeah.
I have 2 kids. The school districts are amazing.
Yes.
And I fell in love with the city of Worcester. I worked at UMass Medical School before opening my own company.
Oh,
I was their event planner for almost 7 years, and loved that job. I had amazing connections there, amazing bosses, amazing colleagues, and I met a lot of people working there. And after working there, I was kind of like, you know what, this is home. It's such a great area. So hopefully one day we'll have an office on the Cape. That would be my ideal.
the thing with Sutton is you're rural, but you're not far from what's going on.
Totally. We're only 15 minutes from Worcester. It's really close. And Worcester now is just, I mean, I can't rave about it enough. It's just such an amazing city. It's such a big city. There's so much going on, and it's so vibrant. And I just love everything they're doing in Worcester.
I've been on planning board in Northbridge now for about on and off for 30 years, and I'm seeing what's going on in Sutton is just amazing. It's growing at leaps and
It
bounds.
really is.
For a long time, you had all farming,
Mm-hmm.
and it's becoming quite commercial.
Mm.
Now, at 146 strip, and now you're going to right near near the Sutton line. We got a huge industrial park, but now you got Amazon coming in.
Yep. Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, I remember moving in and Market 32 wasn't there when I first bought
Right.
my house, and that went in. I was over the moon, and there was a really close grocery store, and but where I grew up on Cape Cod, it was sort of a similar situation where you have to drive kind of 15, 20 minutes to get to anywhere.
Yeah,
You know,
well,
you're
Marston
used
Mills,
to it.
you have to either drive down to Hyannis or Falmouth
Exactly. Yeah, you gotta go a little bit to
And in the
15 minutes to
summertime,
get
it
anywhere.
takes you an extra 2 hours because,
It will, except if you know the back rows. If you're
yeah,
really
that's, yeah,
good, gotta know the
I
back
worked the
roads.
Cape on sales when I retired from my corporate job. I went to work for Auburn Merchandise Distributors, and I covered the Cape,
It's a beautiful.
and
I
I
love
hit
it
all the
down there.
back roads.
We still go down quite a bit. My parents still have a house down there, so
Oh,
myself and the
okay.
kids and we go down there quite a bit
That
and
was
spend
smart of them.
weekends. It's very smart. I'm very thrilled if they kept that.
They come there in the summer?
They do. They can't travel because of COVID, obviously, right now. But
Yeah.
usually they come and stay for a few weeks at a time.
How is
and-
it handled? Is Ireland really infected bad, or?
No, but they are. I mean, they're very strict. They're at a level 5.
I know England was quite a spell where for a while. It was
Yeah,
really getting-
I mean, don't quote me. I believe England was worse than Ireland.
Right.
But Ireland's very strict right now. Like, let's say, I mean, I'm a citizen, and so is my daughter.
Yeah.
And if the two of us flew into Ireland, we'd have to stay in a hotel for 14 days, and not leave that hotel to quarantine.
You know, how do you go?
So,
I got
yeah,
a
they're
2-week
very
vacation. I got to
strict.
stay in the hotel.
Yeah, they're very strict. So we won't be flying to Ireland to see my parents anytime soon. But when that will lighten up, and once
Yeah.
that does, my
But
parents will come
you
over.
communicate over this.
All the time.
Over the
Yeah,
net.
all the time. Yeah, we live on FaceTime with them.
Isn't that amazing today?
Yeah, we live on FaceTime. I talk to them probably a couple times a week at least.
They could be watching right now. I have some cousins in Poland, and they watch this show.
Oh wow, that's
Yeah.
fascinating.
They came and visit in 2019. They made before COVID. And yeah, in fact, I took them around. I took them to Plymouth. They loved it.
Yeah, Plymouth's a great area. Very
And what
pretty.
Europeans love to meet American Indians.
Interesting.
They were very big for some reason.
Interesting.
They were thrilled because I brought them over to Plymouth Plantation, and you got
Mm-hmm.
some of the Indians that, you know, Native Americans that they're actually Native Americans that
Mm-hmm.
recreated
Oh, interesting.
the village there, and they went wild over
That's
that.
funny. Oh, I never knew.
But I knew that because I spent 2 years in Germany, and they have a holiday called Fasching
Mm-hmm.
in February, and they all dressed up in costumes. The kids dressed up like we do at Halloween,
Mm-hmm.
and the big costumes were Indians and cowboys.
Interesting.
You know,
I've done some stuff in Germany, so I've been to Germany myself a few times.
another beautiful country.
It is a beautiful country. I kind of lived in the airport and the hotel for most of while I was
Oh.
there, because I was there for work, but it was still beautiful.
But but the internet is really, that's what it's done today. I mean, it's made the world so small, and you can communicate so easily. We're on Facebook. I talk to them all the time on Facebook.
Hmm. Yeah, it's great. I mean, even for business, I mean, the internet and social media is everything now.
Yes.
It's especially in the events world.
Yeah, it's going to make your job much easier.
Much easier because they can see photos and pictures, and I can set up Pinterest pages and say
And
add
you can
everything
communicate
in.
with these people much quicker.
Mm-hmm. Oh, 100%. I mean, it's funny nowadays, instead of picking up the phone, which I still do, just not as often, we can send a private message through Instagram to my photographer.
Yeah,
Hey, are you
yeah.
available on Tuesday at 3 o'clock? And it takes me 2 seconds, and it's, it's
And
just so
people
much
tend to
quicker.
get the message when you text it.
Mm-hmm.
You call on the phone, you get voicemail, and you hope that they pick it up.
Yeah, everything nowadays, I used to always joke at my old job that people would see me sitting on my phone or on Pinterest. I'm like, they must just think that I mess around all day. Like, they must have no idea. Because all my vendors, we would just text. We would never call. And it was even rare to email unless you had something large you had to say. You would just text and send a quick message.
I'm not that good, but my granddaughter's like with the,
Yep.
the
Oh, my
thumbs.
daughter, too. She's,
Yeah, I
she's,
mean,
she's pretty quick at it.
I know. I do that. I'm trying to
Yep.
one finger.
I know. I know.
Looking for the letters.
I know. You get pretty quick when you're on it as much as we are.
Yeah.
Your phone's attached to you normally.
But, well, we're getting close to the end here, so I want to give you a chance to say how to get a hold of you.
Yes. So the best way to get hold of me is through our website. I don't think it's on there, but it's www.infinityeventsco.com. And we actually you can see all of our photos from some of our past events that we've done, learn about me, I actually have a staff member named Julia Splendido. So she's on there as well in her bio. And then you can also give us a call. It's 508-388-6685. Or email is Ashling, my name, ASHLING, @infinityeventsco.com.
I want to say, I went to the website. It's interesting. It's, even if you're not doing need a planner right now, I'd go to the website. You have great bios on there.
Yes, thank you very much.
And it's also interesting in what you can do for people.
Yes, there's a lot of different information. I try to make it as easy on people as possible. That if they're looking for something, they can go to the social section. They can go to the corporate section.
Yeah, it's an excellent website.
And they can just kind of look and see exactly what we do. But it's not everything we do. There's always things that we're sort of adding on or that we don't think of right away. Another thing that's big with our website is I would not call myself a great writer in any way, shape, or form. But we started doing a blog. So I actually write blogs all the time now, whether it be about the blog that we just posted up was about me opening my business 1 week before COVID hit.
I know, I read that.
And how I really felt and what the emotions that I were going through that. So sometimes our blogs are literally just me sort of talking about my life. Because, some people find event planning very interesting and they want to learn more about it. And then some of our blogs are how to book the right venue, what to do with a virtual event, how to keep your guests engaged. So we try to sort of add on content that can be helpful for people, whether they hire us or not. I want them to have the best event, even if they don't hire us. So hopefully all that information is helpful for them.
I got to say, being a mom with 2 young children.
I do, 4 and 11.
Yeah, and yet being a full-time job.
It is, yes. It's a full-time job, definitely being a mom. I have amazing kids.
And yet you get your other job.
And I have my full-time business now, so
Yeah.
I've learned to juggle really well.
Yeah.
So and I'm a single mom, so I do it on my own, and it's interesting. You have a great network. I have a great network of friends and family that are so supportive and kind of help me out through everything. And I have amazing children, and I have amazing clients.
They have to be very supportive.
So supportive.
Yeah.
Yeah. My daughter's here with me today, and I bring my kids with me when I can, and show them that mommy works hard. And
they're learning the business.
Yeah, she's my little event planner in training.
Yeah. So you started a whole generational thing.
She
here.
has. She's actually very picky about her birthday parties. I started her very young. I didn't quite think, and she's nodding at me over here. And I started her very young, and she was about 2. And she morphed into this year planning her birthday, which had to be virtual. And it was we sent out these luxury boxes to all her friends with toys and goodies and food and all of this. And she needed to be very specific about what went into those.
I'm watching the clock.
Yeah.
We got to go. Well, thank you for coming in.
You're welcome. Thank you for
Ashling.
having me.
Yeah, great.
I appreciate it.
Get a hold of Ashling if you got a party coming up. Believe me, you won't be sorry. It'll be a lot easier than trying to do it yourself.
Absolutely.
And, we'll see you next week. Peter Dicaro will be my guest, and he is the guy who opened up the marijuana store in Worcester and then grows his own in Douglas.
Interesting.
Yeah.